Hey, so basically, today I'm talking about mental illness. Woo woo woo. The most fun thing to talk about. Um, because I think it's kind of relevant at this moment in time. I have mental illness. You can look at me and tell, like, we knew. Um, but I feel like a lot of people misuse and misrepresent people with mental illness, because when you first think of mental illness, I feel like people automatically assume the worst. Like you're mentally ill, like that's heavy, and I think that definitely needs to change. I think that's a huge part of it. I think the fact that when people think of the mentally ill, they think of people in like asylums and like straitjackets, and like there's still like such a fear around it. And even though it's getting better, I definitely think people still have a negative connotation of it. And obviously, yes, while it is absolutely a serious thing and people should be concerned about the people who do have them and they should be able to get help, it's not always necessarily available. And so that's what I'm basically going to be talking about today. My personal experiences with mental illness, um, and the reason that a lot of people just can't get help. So, yeah, let's start with my personal experience because I feel like that's a lot easier to explain, if you will. Let's start off with some diagnosis. I've been in therapy for, God, 3 months now. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, however, it's incredibly hard to keep up with, mostly because it's just a challenge. I feel like a lot of people have romanticized having depression and anxiety and ADHD because it's such an easy thing to get away with romanticizing, or like pretending to have. I feel like that's such a toxic thing because I feel like a lot of people genuinely do pretend to have it, and that makes it a lot harder for people who actually need to get help if you're taking up those resources or those appointments. And I definitely think that that's a really big problem. But anyway, so I feel like I've talked about this in another video, but official diagnoses include generalized anxiety, PTSD, depression, ADHD, and minor tendencies of OCD is a very new one, which is, oh boy, I got a whole hand down. Look at me. We're going for the whole deck. Anyway, God, I shouldn't joke about this. Anyway, so those are all we got. And I feel like I have three of the most misused things ever: anxiety, depression, and ADHD. I think those three are easily the most, like, oh, like, I'm so depressed, like, God, I forgot my coffee earlier, like, oh no, or like, oh, I'm so depressed, like, I didn't even get, like, I didn't get in line first, or like, oh, I'm so depressed that I got, like, a B on my test, like, that kind of thing. Or like, oh, I'm so anxious right now, like, oh my God, like, I have such bad anxiety. And I think all those are like really misused, and I think that people, while yes, mental illness does need to be talked about more, it also needs to be represented in a fair way instead of just pretending and over exaggerating and just all of that stuff. I think it's really, toxic, actually. I think it defeats the purpose of being aware of mental illness versus making it into, like, I don't know, like a quirky thing to do. Like, I definitely have talked about this. I don't remember what video, but I figured I would just make a video centralizing on this topic because I have a lot to say about this. Because I think it is such a harmful thing to do to fake something that I have to struggle with, like people in the world has to struggle with. I think it's the same thing as white people acting oppressed. I think it's the same exact thing. Or like how like on TikTok, like Kill All Men 2020, like it's like fake obviously, but these guys are taking it so seriously and they're like, oh, like, men are so oppressed, like, boo-hoo, give me points, give me, like, oppression points. And it's such a toxic system because everybody just wants to be oppressed, which is so funny to me. Everybody wants to have a struggle. Everybody wants to have one. So, like, if that is faking anxiety for funsies to get attention, or, like, it's so crazy. It's so wild to me. Like, I didn't have a literal 2-hour-long panic attack in a Walmart parking lot for Brittany over there to, like, oh my god, guys, like, I'm so anxious right now. And once again, let me rephrase that because I sound like a bitch. Hear me out. If you genuinely have thoughts and fears or just worries that you do have mental illness, go in to see somebody about it. You can even go to your normal doctor. They will try and fit you in. They'll give you a good recommendation if it's in the, insurance. It's honestly a really nice way to do it. You can schedule it under a checkup and then bring it up at the end, and they'll still charge you for a checkup. Like, seriously, it's really not that hard. And if you are if you're very concerned about it, go ahead. That's totally fine. And please seek help if you need it. I think it's incredibly important to get help if you do end up needing it. However, it's so hard to believe that this girl that I see, like, oh, I don't know, like, just being so out there and, like, bold and, like, whatever, being like, oh, like, I don't know, it's just, I'm really nervous, like, I have a lot of anxiety, like, I'm so anxious, even though, like, you did the exact same thing last week and we're perfectly fine. Now, once again, I understand that, like, trust me, if anyone knows how it is, that anxiety isn't exactly consistent. However, I feel like it's just such a misused thing. Same with depression. I feel like, once again, I don't struggle to literally get up and, like, take a shower. And no one talks about that, right? Everyone who's like, oh, I'm so depressed, like, aw, like, I'm so depressed right now, you can tell that they, like, ate breakfast that morning and, like, got up easily and, like, took a shower. Like, it's silly to me. We've had some struggles. I've had some weeks, I've had some months, I've had some years that were really incredibly difficult because of depression. And for you to just devalue that is just, I don't know, it's really hard because I don't understand why you would do that. I don't understand what appeals people to act depressed and, like, oh, like, look at me, could you please give me pity? Like, if you have nothing wrong with you, like, genuinely, if you're not concerned about having anything wrong with you, if you're, like, you're perfectly fine, why, like, why would you want to have all this? Like, I have a mental breakdown every time someone with, like, curly hair that's taller than, like, 5'8" comes around me. But yeah, like, I get it. Like, oh my god, PTSD, war flashbacks, ha ha ha, like, oh my god, so funny, like, it's really funny, I understand, yeah. Also, that's another thing I want to talk about. People not understanding that PTSD is not just for veterans. Now, once again, PTSD as a whole is awful to have. Once again, I get it. However, it's not just a war thing. People have this very, like, predisposition. Whenever I'm like, oh, like, God, yeah, no, I have PTSD. People are always like, but you didn't go to war. Like, what do you mean? No, you don't. And I think that's another thing, is because it's like it's a generalization that everyone with PTSD has, like, oh, like, you're a veteran. No, that isn't how it works. That just isn't how that works. Like, we don't generalize a lot of other things. Like, we don't say that, bipolar people are only from 30 to 35. Like, it's not like that. No other disease has that except for PTSD. And while, yes, a huge majority, well, I wouldn't even say the majority. I feel like I'd give it like a good 75% are from veterans. A lot of other things are from trauma victims. Ooh, oh my god, let's go trauma. It's just how it is. Sexual assault victims, rape victims, I don't know, God, abusive parents, abusive relationships, just so many things can trigger PTSD, and some people have a lot worse PTSD versus, like minor. I don't want to say minor because it takes away the severity, but I'll say minor for this representation. So I feel like if you have PTSD from a small traumatic event, such as, like, you don't like ovens because you burned yourself, that can be considered PTSD, even though it really is a different form. But some psychiatrists or some, therapists would consider it PTSD. However, some people, like me, for example, get triggered by a whole variety of things. It all changes. It's all different, And, that's okay. And that's cool. There can be a lot of different things that are going on. There can be a lot of different meanings for things, and that is once again fine. But to say that you have PTSD when you don't is making things a lot less severe and making people who actually have PTSD struggle a little bit harder to actually, like, prove they have it, or like, oh, like, but do you though? Like, do you though? Or like with anxiety or depression or ADHD. ADHD is not just being hyper. It's a lot of, placing something. I have a windowsill behind my computer right now, and I'll place something there, and I'll forget about it for literal days, and I'll be searching for it and searching for it and searching for it, and you can't find it, because when you see something in one place so often, you almost forget it's there. Or the fact that, appetite's super decreased for me. I'm practically never hungry, but then that also increases, digestive issues, which also is technically a symptom of ADHD. There are so many symptoms of ADHD that goes completely unrecognized by the main media, because ADHD is portrayed as, oh my god, I'm so quirky, like, look at me, I have so much energy. And it just isn't always like that. Especially a lot of people don't understand that depression and ADHD go hand in hand. Same with anxiety and depression. If you have both, you're more than likely to have depression. If you have ADHD in general, you're a ton more likely to have depression. It goes hand in hand. And, there's just a lot of things that go so unnoticed because the way that media portrays it. And it gets really sickening because if you're an actual person that struggles with something, it's really hard to move past that and try to explain it to people, even though when their whole entire lives they've heard one thing, and then trying to explain it to them in a better, more, or like less toxic and less brush it over way, it's incredibly difficult. I have had tons of people not just plain out say, I don't believe you, for having, like, more than 2 mental disorders, if we can call it that. I guess we can call it that. But, like, I've had dead serious, like, more than 5 people be like, no, that's not even possible. I've had a person look me in the eyes and say, pick a struggle. If I could pick a struggle, oh, my life would be so set, man. So yeah. I don't know what the main point is for this just stop misusing mental illness. Stop trying to be quirky. You're not quirky. You're just annoying, and you're desensitizing people to stuff that really should be taken more seriously, and you're taking help away from other people. Also, another reason I hear a lot of people being like, well, if you have mental illness, then why don't you just go get help? Like, that's a genuine argument that I've had with someone, because some people just don't get help. Some people can't get help with therapy isn't cheap, alright? Therapy is not cheap at all. If you don't have a good insurance, you'll be giving them your liver. Like, it's so genuinely expensive, and that's so awful. Also, psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are so hard to get into, depending on where or who you go to. For example, my mother works in the medical field, and since she works with a lot of people in, a certain like unit, like there's like a certain like brand of hospital, like a BP is a gas station. Yeah, she works with one brand of hospital. I can't go to that because it's conflict of interest. So I have to go to a really shitty, small, little, tiny, one-off therapist because I can't go anywhere else in Wisconsin. And yeah, sucks to suck, I guess, but at least I get someone. However, the psychiatrist, there's one for this entire unit that treats hundreds of people, and she's only in once a week. I can't get prescriptions at all for months, like genuine months. I'm probably not even going to get the medication that I need so desperately for months just because of unavailability. People aren't always as privileged as you. If you can pay for therapy, get a therapist and be on meds, you're incredibly lucky. Like, it's so genuinely difficult because America really doesn't care. I think this might be an American thing. I don't know if it's a world thing. However, America really doesn't care about mentally ill people. Whoa, whoa there, slow down there, buckaroo. You're a bit messed up, so I'm good. So it's incredibly hard to get psychiatrists in general, because there's so few of them. There's so few of them, or at least in Wisconsin. Maybe I shouldn't say America. I don't really know. I'm speaking from Wisconsin's standpoint. It's so difficult to get anything here. There's so little psychiatric help for people, and there's so little funding going into it. And I think that that's awful, because I genuinely think so many people that are not functioning right now could function so better with just the right amount of help. So with that note, wear a mask, don't be stupid, don't use mental illness for oppression points, and finally, defund the police and put it into places that can actually help people. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.